Howya, welcome to Comic Kong. To celebrate the release of the TV show Watchmen, I decided to look at the iconic comic book series.
Who are you? Who am I? If I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be wearing a mask.
Did you know the main characters in the story aren't called the Watchmen? The 1940 team was called the Minutemen. The 1960 team was called the Crime Busters. The title comes from the Roman phrase quis custodiet ipsis custodiis, which translates into who watches the Watchmen. It's an old-fashioned way of saying who polices the police or who governs the government. In the context of the story, it means if the heroes are here to stop corruption, who's going to stop them from becoming corrupt themselves? It's just a play on that phrase. It's not the actual name of the characters. And nobody told that to Zack Snyder when he made the movie because Rorschach says it.
Watchmen, one of us died tonight.
And that is the first of 100 facts about Watchmen. Let's dive in. Watchmen was written by Alan Moore and drawn by Dave Gibbons. The writers were inspired by the Archie Comics characters, the Mighty Crusaders, from 1965 when they came up with the idea of Watchmen. The story takes place in an alternative reality during the 1980s. In this reality, America won the Vietnam War, which secured President Nixon's place in the White House for over 15 years. When Vietnam was defeated, it was accepted as an American state. Because of this, the American flag has 51 stars. The original team was the Minutemen. They were made up of Night Owl, Silk Spectre, Captain Metropolis, Hooded Justice, Dollar Bill, Mothman, and the Silhouette. Hooded Justice's identity is never revealed. The Silhouette was the first person to come out as a superhero. Mothman went mad after becoming a drug addict. He was forcibly sent to a mental asylum. The superheroes used to battle Moloch the Mystic, Big Figure, and others. The Silk Spectre's real name is Sally Giuseppe, although she usually goes by the name Sally Jupiter. She was assaulted by the comedian during a violent outburst. Eventually, they both consensually had a child. Sally Jupiter married her manager, Lawrence, even though she didn't love him. She brought a comedian's daughter, Laurie, with Lawrence. The first Night Owl was called Hollis Mason. He retired as a superhero in 1962 and wrote an autobiography called Under the Hood. He was the only member of his team that didn't have any psychological problems. A prequel of Watchmen was created in 2012 called Before Watchmen. It was composed of 37 issues and looks at the original cast of the Crime Busters and the Minutemen. This series was created by DC Comics. Watchmen's writer Alan Moore despises the comic book industry and has been screwed over many times, to the point where he refuses to work with Marvel or DC. He was asked to create Before Watchmen, but he refused. He called the project shameless and unexceptional. The team most people are familiar with in the story are the Crime Busters, which are made up of Ozymandias, the second Silk Spectre, Dr. Manhattan, the Comedian, the second Night Owl, and Rorschach. Superheroes eventually became unpopular among the public and were inevitably outlawed by the Keene Act. Because of this, the Crime Busters disbanded. Now, let's look at the actual members themselves. Let's start with the Comedian. His real name is Edward Morgan Blake. He believes that civilization only exists as a concept because humans are naturally savage. He chose the name the Comedian to mock society for pretending to be peaceful. He is the only superhero who was a part of the 1940 superhero team, the Minutemen, and the 1960s team, the Crime Busters. He was inspired by Marvel's character, Nick Fury, and the DC character, Peacemaker. His face is based on Groucho Marx and Burt Reynolds. He was good friends with JFK, his brother Bobby, and Jackie Kennedy. He killed Marilyn Monroe so JFK could focus on the Vietnam War. However, in the movie, he kills JFK to ensure America does go to war with Vietnam. He's played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan in the 2009 film Watchmen. This isn't the only comic book character that Jeffrey Dean Morgan has played. He plays Negan in the Walking Dead TV series, and he played Clay in The Losers. Dr. Manhattan's real name is John Osterman. He's played by Billy Crudup in the Watchmen film. This isn't the only comic book film that Billy Crudup has been part of. He plays the Flash's father in Justice League. Dr. Manhattan is named after the Manhattan Project, the R&D project where nuclear weapons were created to prepare for World War II. He is the only superhero in the Watchmen series that has superpowers. He was a physicist who gained his power after being disintegrated by an intrinsic field subtractor in 1959. Oh yeah. Them. His father was a watchmaker, which made John have a fascination with fixing watches. His family is German. His family had to leave Germany to protect John's Jewish mother. His abilities include telekinesis, teleportation, subatomic matter control, duplication, resurrection, healing, gravity manipulation, shapeshifting, flight, precognition, disintegration, intangibility, complete perception of time, force field generation, density control, ecological manipulation, and mass manipulation. He doesn't require food, water, air, or heat to survive. I should have just said he has has the power to everything. That would have been faster. Dr. Manhattan is usually nude. The writers were worried that DC Comics wouldn't allow the character to be depicted naked. Shortly after gaining his power, Dr. Manhattan allied himself with the American government. He was personally asked by President Richard Nixon to intervene in the Vietnam War. Manhattan nearly single-handedly defeated the Vietnamese and prevented the collapse of the Saigon government. Now let's look at Night Owl. Although Hollis Mason was the first Night Owl, the Watchmen series mainly revolves around his successor, Daniel Dreberg. Night Owl is played by Patrick Wilson in the Watchmen film. Again, this is not the only superhero film that he's been a part of. He plays the main villain, Orm the Ocean Master, in the 2018 film, Aquaman. In the film, Night Owl is based on Batman. The character was originally based on the DC superhero, Blue Beetle. Dan Dreberg was trained by the first Night Owl. His owl ship is called Archimedes. It was the name of Merlin's pet owl in British folklore. Now let's look at the guy you came here to see, Rorschach. His real name is Walter Kovacs. Probably the most intimidating person to ever live. That was called Walter. The name Rorschach is a reference to how his mask is made of a constantly shifting ink blot that resembles the Rorschach test. He sees Night Owl as his only friend. His costume and mask is based on the DC superhero, The Question. The character is inspired by Travis Bickle, the lead character in the movie Taxi Driver. Now let's look at Silk Spectre. Although Sally Jupiter was the first Silk Spectre, the story revolves around her daughter Laurie and her time as a superheroine. She was trained by her mother to be a superheroine when she was only a teenager. Her mother pretended to be a kidnapper and attacked Laurie to see how she would react. She is based on DC characters like Nightshade, Black Canary, and Phantom Lady. Laurie's mother was involved with sleazy films and merchandise, which caused Laurie to be bullied as a teenager. Ashamed of her mother, she left home at 16. She eventually learns that the comedian is her real father. Ozymandias' real name is Adrian Veidt. He draws inspiration from Alexander the Great and the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II. Ramesses II's real name was Ozymandias. By the way, according to Before Watchmen, his name is meant to be pronounced Ozymandias. I say Ozymandias, because I like it. He is the smartest man on Earth. He was born in Germany. A lot of people don't notice this. His German accent is slightly more noticeable when he's talking in private in the Watchmen film. I thought that was a nice touch.
It's a matter of public record that by 17, both my parents were dead, leaving me alone. John was helping me replicate his power, unaware of how I planned to use it.
His parents left Germany when Adrian's father learned his wife was pregnant. They left Germany in 1938, the same year that Nazism swept the nation. His father dreamed that Adrian would become the American president. Adrian's genius was apparent when he was 2. When he was 4, he read all 24 of his father's encyclopedias. He graduated from high school when he was only 14. He hid his vast intelligence throughout his youth to avoid being bullied for being different. Although he inherited their vast wealth, he gave it all to charity to see if he could make something out of himself without relying on his parents' fortune. He traced Alexander the Great's path himself across the globe when he was a young man. When he was young, his love interest died from a drug overdose. He vowed to avenge her death as a superhero. He was the first of the crime busters to reveal his identity. He went public 2 years before the Keene Act was initiated. His Ozymandias outfit is an altered Halloween costume. Many Watchmen fans believe that Ozymandias is gay simply because Rorschach implied it in the first issue. This is not true. He does not have relationships, so he's not distracted from his work. He created his fortune using his own intellect and managerial skills. After many years, he became the richest man in the world. The comedian convinced Ozymandias that mankind was doomed to end in nuclear war. Ozymandias realized that in order for him to make the world a better place, he would have to do something that had never been tried before. To broaden his creativity, he read every science fiction book and watched every science fiction film and television show he could find. The Watchmen series revolves around the Mask Killer, a person who is seemingly murdering former superheroes. It is revealed near the end of the story that Ozymandias is the Mask Killer. Ozymandias' grand plan was to fake an alien invasion that would kill millions. He believed that the tragedy would force every war on Earth to end so that humanity would unite against a common foe. Since the foe was non-existent, it would force mankind to remain in a ceasefire. Ozymandias believes that this is the only way to create global peace. Millions must die to save billions. Ozymandias got the idea of faking an alien invasion from the TV show The Outer Limits. In the show, the plan fails. In the Watchmen story, Ozymandias' plan succeeds. He has a genetically altered lynx as a pet called Bubastis. Bubastis' name is derived from an Egyptian city where the inhabitants worship the cat goddess Based. Bubastis was the first attempt to create a creature intended for the fake alien invasion. The alien creature doesn't have an official name, but fans call it the Squid. By chance, the comedian happened to find Ozymandias' secret base when he was creating the Squid. When the comedian read the base's files and saw the creature, he went insane. When Ozymandias learned that the comedian had been on the base, Ozymandias had no choice but to kill him. His lair is called Karnak and resides resides in Antarctica. Karnak was the name of the main place of worship in ancient Egypt. It is also the second oldest religious site in the world. The former villain Moloch told Rorschach that he's dying of cancer during their last encounter. And before Watchmen, it is unveiled that Ozymandias planted a radioactive material under Moloch's desk when he worked for him. Over time, the material made Moloch terminally ill. And to finish up, let's look at the Watchmen film. In the intro, the original Night Owl punches a crook. In the background, Bruce Wayne and his parents can be seen running out of a theater. Bruce Wayne's parents are shot dead moments later. Well played, Zack Snyder. The retirement scene in the intro recreates Leonardo da Vinci's painting, The Last Supper. The trailer for the film was so impressive that the comic became a Barnes & Noble bestseller decades after it was originally released. In the film, Rorschach kills a murderer by stabbing him in the head. In the comic, he made the murderer chop off his own leg with a saw. This was changed because it was too similar to the film Saw, which only came out a few years before. In Uruguay, the film is simply called The Vigilantes. At one point, David Fincher was going to turn the story into a TV miniseries. Sean Penn was considered for the role of Rorschach. The film cost $130 million. It only made $185 million at the box office. $7 million was spent on the film during pre-production before it even had a director. The director cameos as a soldier on the helicopter with a comedian. The squid was changed for the film because, for some reason, the director thought might be a bit stupid. When Laurie and Dan are having dinner, Rorschach walks by in his civilian identity. Ozymandias' outfit is based on Batman's costume from Batman and Robin. Why would you try to connect anything to that movie? On his monitors, Ozymandias watches The Tonight Show, Rambo First Blood Part 2, Mad Max, Dallas, Tweety Pie, and Altered States. He's also watching The 300 Spartans, which is a reference to the director Zack Snyder, who directed 300, which revolved around the same characters. Rorschach actor Jackie Earle Haley is a black belt in Kempo. However, he didn't utilize his martial arts, believing that the character would have a more brutal, scrappy fighting style. Despite the fact that Carla Gugino and Marlon Ackerman are playing mother and daughter, there's only 7 years between them. Although there's a lot of swearing in the film, the comic never uses the F-word. The DVD comes with an animated story called The Tale of the Black Friar with Sherrod Butler in the lead role.
How had I reached this appalling position with love? Only love as my guide.
The photograph of the comedian shaking hands with Richard Nixon is based on the photo of Nixon and Elvis. Johnny Depp nearly played the comedian. Jeffrey Dean Morgan originally turned down the role of the comedian because he saw the character was killed off after 3 minutes. Only when he consulted a friend did he realize that most of the scenes are in flashbacks. In the original script, Night Owl kills Ozymandias with a boomerang. In the trailer, there's a shot of an assassin trying to kill Adrian Veidt. This is a problem since the killer points his gun at the camera for a split second. Since it is forbidden to have a gun pointed at the camera in a trailer, Zack Snyder was told he had to change it. For the revised trailer, Snyder changed the gun to a walkie-talkie. And finally, in the original script, Ozymandias planned to go back in time and kill John Osterman with a sniper rifle before he became Dr. Manhattan. This caused a time paradox, which caused Silk Spectre, Night Owl, and Rorschach to be sucked into a different dimension where they exist in a comic book. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe. Please let me know if there's any other comic book characters you want me to do a video about and I'll upload it as soon as possible.